Good morning, Texas MLS fans. It's time to recap a crazy weekend on the Striker MLS podcast. My name is Jon Arnold. I'm seated in Dallas, Texas. Victor Araiza joins me. Oops, wrong direction over there. He's in Houston. Chris Bils joins me over there. He's in Austin. Let's talk about the Texas Taco Weekend. Looking forward a little bit to the U.S. Open Cup, and also it's Derby weekend. I'm going to be extra rude to Victor this week because FC Dallas plays the
Extra.
Houston Dynamo. Yeah, you're not even ready for this level. No, it's all love here, but it's all hatred, I think, typically between FC Dallas and Houston. We'll get into that a little bit later. But first, let's talk about the weekend that was in Texas MLS soccer. Chris, you stole all the goals, and it was quite a way to do it because FC Dallas and the New York Red Bulls draw 0-0. Houston Dynamo and Portland Timbers draw 0-0. We will talk about those games, but it looked like DC United was rolling to a home victory over Austin FC. And then the 80th minute hits, and that's when Austin decides time to start playing. It was an unbelievable comeback. You were there to see it. One of the only
It
media
was.
members who were there to take it in. What happened?
It was incredible. I mean, I think I was starting to. It was one of those games, right, where you've got your story kind of rolling. It was probably one of the worst performances in Austin history. Was sort of how it was going to be framed, and then all of a sudden, Danny Hoesen comes on and changes the script. And
That expansion draft pick comes through, baby.
Yeah,
It only took a year and a couple months.
it was huge. It was
It
well,
was.
it was actually pretty much the 1 year anniversary of the first ever game in Austin FC history out in LA, and tons of Austin fans made the trip on this one. 250 plus. 250 plus Danny Pereira's friends and family, which was quite a contingent out there. So, and they were. I was up there at halftime. Things were nervous, but I think you could sense that there was going to be an opportunity coming because Ola Kamara got sent off, scored both goals in the first half, was probably the best player on the field in the first half, and ripped off his shirt for the first yellow card, which looked like he maybe had a good message for.
I think it was a tribute
member.
to his late grandmother, is what people were sort of piecing together. So I mean, I understand wanting to get that message out there, but it does give you a yellow card. You have to know that and manage that.
And especially in the 29th minute, early in a match. And then he had a bad tackle, which I think a lot of people thought maybe could have been a straight red the way he went in on Sebastian Drusi outside the box. But it's the second yellow. Either way, he's off the pitch. And then Andy Nahar, who I thought was probably either the best or second best player for DC United, goes off early in the second half with an injury. Looked like he maybe took a hit from Maxi Arutzi. And then Austin kind of settled into the game. Josh Wolf tried something different with his starting lineup. We talked about it pre-match, and it didn't really come off. But credit to the coach and credit to the players for making those adjustments in the second half. I thought all the subs made a big difference. Both fullbacks again. Josh Wolf seems to be liking that double fullback switch. He's got four fullbacks who he trusts, and Hector Jimenez and John Kolmanich definitely made a difference. They're definitely more of the attacking, more of like the creative fullbacks, and they made a big impact on the match. But the big thing was Sebastian Drusi coming back into the middle. He started on the wing, was not influential at all until he got back in the middle of the pitch, and then Austin found. They started playing soccer, right? And when this team has the ball at their feet, when they're attacking a team with 10 men, it took a while, but Danny Hoesen, I thought, was really influential from the moment he came on the pitch. Could have scored 3 goals, gets the one. He had sort of a
hat-trick Hoesen.
Yeah, it could have been. He had a chance at the back post that he missed, and he had what would have been a spectacular goal where he took the ball and was sort of fading away and put one off the crossbar. But second goal comes in from Sebastian Drusi, and then it was 85th minute, and you knew there was going to be quite a bit of stoppage time, but they didn't even need it. It was 90th minute, and looping ball from Diego Fagundes to Ruben Gabrielsen at the back stick, and Ruben Gabrielsen makes up for whatever mistakes he had made previously, especially in Portland on the road, and
also
rises
in the
above.
first half of this game against DC, I think. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk. We can talk about what
I,
whether that
I
was
want
him
I
or
want to
whether that
go.
was. Yeah.
I want to go good cop, bad cop in general, and then we
Hmm.
can get into some of the specifics. We are going to spend a significant amount of time on this Austin game because
It was wild.
it was wild and there were no goals in the other games. So,
Yeah.
like I said, good cop, bad cop. Let's start good.
Uh huh.
Austin's in second place in the West. Austin
Yeah.
ended the night in first place in the West. We didn't think we were going to be saying that sentence this year. We didn't think we were going to be saying that sentence in April. It'd be better if it's in October, but it's a pretty darn good start. And last year, this is a game where I think if Austin FC goes into the halftime break down 2-0, I'm not saying they're quitting. I'm not saying they're, hanging their
Well,
heads. They're not coming back to win this game. No way.
yeah. Well, that's the thing that we got a chance to talk to Danny Hosen after the match, and that was one of the things I asked him. I was like, we've talked a lot about the difference in the mentality of this group, but who is leading that? Like who's grabbing guys at halftime? And he brought up the newcomers, and I think that he could also include himself in that group, right? Because we barely saw him last year, but he pointed specifically to Max Diarruti, who wasn't on the pitch during the comeback, but definitely was involved both in I think the halftime deliberations and the post game celebration. If you saw any of those videos that were going around, definitely a guy that has brought this group together. And then Felipe Martins, who came in and I thought had a really nice 25, 30 minutes as well. And guys, I think that when you look at this group, and Ruben Gabrielson as well was the other one he mentioned as just being kind of a leader, somebody who's been in those moments. And he said last year, in a lot of those moments, the locker room would be quiet at halftime. Guys would be sort of down, and it's completely different this year. It sounds like um, you know, they're yelling at each other in a good way. They're close enough to kind of getting into each other and coming up with a plan and the solutions that they
Yeah.
need to pull off a comeback like this. And it wasn't easy. It took a good 35 minutes before they actually were able to break through in this one. But once they did, you could see the belief, and you could see the togetherness, and now it's a storybook moment for this club. It's a signature win in this club's history in a performance that wasn't near the top of what they're capable of.
So let me bad cop it now.
Right.
This wasn't a good game. It wasn't a good performance. They got extremely lucky, and their schedule has been bad. To chronicle, to channel college football fans, Chris, they ain't played nobody. Why should we believe that Austin FC can continue this?
Well, I think it's two things, right? I think one, in this league, especially going on the road, there's no easy matches, and this is something that they if they lose this one, they would have gone a full MLS calendar without a road victory. This was the 17th match since that win May 1st last year in Minnesota, and they're able to come back and get this one. And the other thing is, like, points are points, right? Those don't
Yeah,
go away as you get
but
deeper into the calendar.
I'm not bad copying. I'm not trying to diminish them winning this game. Fans being excited for the comeback for sure.
Yeah,
What
how
what
much
I
of
am
this was
pouring water
DC
on.
being bad?
Well, that's a. I appreciate you being my bad cop partner, Victor. And the other thing, in addition to how much of this is DC
Well,
being bad, like I feel like there's a lot of look. Our own Phil West is calling out Andrew Wiebe for saying, "Come on, man! Like believe in this team, believe in this team." I feel like the skepticism is somewhat healthy because I
Right.
don't think that
And
Austin. Look, I'm joking about like the college football fan, like they ain't played nobody, but the schedule has been very nice for Austin. They
mhm,
haven't played a team that looks like they're going to be top tier playoff team, except for
except for
the
Seattle
Sounders in a weird moment,
and
right?
Portland. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll get to Portland here
Right.
in a moment,
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
I think like can Austin build from this and put together better performances and still get points and still get those victories that obviously you want to see, but
Well,
doing it consistently.
we talk a lot about like tactics and formation and lineups when we talk about Austin FC and Josh Wolf in particular, and I think all those things are warranted, and there's definitely questions to be asked coming out of this one. But the question you can't ask anymore about Austin is I think I saw this from Diego Fagundez's dad and lots of people on Twitter, but like that idea of ganas, like the desire and the fight that this group has, I think is going to carry them a long way. And when they do play well, they play really, really well. It's just that they need to find the best formation, especially without Cecilia Dominguez, and that's what I think that they're kind of going to be searching for the next few weeks. And we'll see. We'll see if it comes together. But there's no questioning that this team believes in itself, and I think that they're going to. Danny Hosen was like, well, people should believe in us now, and I think that the fact that people are still doubting, I think is something that they can, it's trite and it's cliche, but they're gonna use that, right? They're gonna use that doubt, I think, in a way that could be really healthy moving forward.
Yeah,
So we'll
I'm
see.
certainly not. If you want my actual perspective and not my good cop, bad cop, like I think it's a great start. I think it should be celebrated. This was super fun for Austin fans. I mean, the game was going
Hmm.
really poorly. I mean, first half was not
And
good,
that's the
right?
thing too, right? Like, would you rather have a really solid performance when like 2-1, or
I
do you take
yeah,
like these last two games, which weren't good performances, you get the results,
got six
against
points. Like you
and
said, points are points.
you get 6 points, and you are able to build off that momentum. Or like here's a better example: if you have a good performance and get 1 point, right? Like you play a really solid match, and in this case, you get this really emotional comeback, this moment where you're celebrating in the locker room, you're posting all over social media. Twitter was popping off like I've never seen in the Austin FC kind of Twitterverse, and I think just the excitement of that, I think, is going to be
Yeah,
really, really positive. It's like Josh Wolf said, it's a signature win in this club's history.
yeah. I think you can carry that over, and I also think, whatever you want. There's so many schools of thought about like how should the team play? Do they play beautiful soccer? And it's like a lot of times, especially in MLS, just win. Like
Yep.
just win
Yeah,
games, and that's
get
what
it done.
and that's what and that's what Austin is doing right now. The last point, Chris, before we move on, I did want to talk about Gabrielson. We've sort of criticized
Mm.
him, I would say, on this podcast. I thought he had a pretty rough first half. You're saying, hey, maybe those goals weren't necessarily his fault, and then of course he's the kind of triumphant goal scorer in the end. You're talking about his locker room influence. Are we wrong to criticize his, I would say, difficult adaptation to the start of the league? Is this week a sign that he's going in the right direction, or are there still question marks and concerns there?
I think he's definitely settling in, and the partnership between him and Julio Cascante has been really good. I thought
I think
that
Cascante has been fantastic compared to
yeah,
what he did last year.
for sure, for sure. And I think the other thing that from that first half is he wasn't getting much help from either fullback, especially on the right side. Nick Lima was struggling against Danny Nahar, which left a lot of gaps back there. And really, Cascante and Gabrielson were putting out a lot of fires. And then the other thing was that I think Johan Valencia, he actually apologized to Josh Wolf after this match because he didn't close down. He didn't close down Ola Kamara on either play. Certainly on the second goal had a chance, and just kind of missed it. And that's another guy who's still developing, adapting to the league. And I think they're going to rely on him moving forward, but maybe a little early. And the other thing that comes out of this that's been a big talking point, I think, in fan circles that is worth mentioning is Alex Ring was not very good in that number 10 role. A lot of responsibility put on his shoulders. Maybe not his best position. And there's some folks asking for him to be benched, which I think is a little early for that. And I
He
think
looks
that
frustrated though, man. He
he
looks
does.
frustrated. That first half yellow card that he had, that was pure frustration. Just like
Yeah,
it definitely seems like the
I think
last
he.
2 to 3 games he hasn't. I don't think he's been put in a position that he necessarily likes to play, and I
Mhm.
think it shows.
Well, the thing is he does like to play there, and I think that maybe is the frustration is that
Feels like it should be going better for him.
yeah, he does. I
Well,
think he really thinks that should be where he should be, and I think he's pressing a little bit. And but he's still doing Alex Ring things. He's still breaking up plays. He's still got the experience, and he's the captain of this team. So I think that you've got to kind of ride through his ups and downs for now, until you find something that really clicks that doesn't involve him. And maybe we don't see him in San Antonio. I think it's going to be interesting to see what
Yeah,
11 Joshua puts out. We'll talk a little bit about Open Cup, I'm sure, later on in
yeah.
the show. But I know we got to move on to FC Dallas
Yeah,
and
let's
Austin FC.
talk a
But
little bit about the other teams. Harry Austin joining us on YouTube appointment viewing. He joins us 10 a.m. every Monday. Appreciate it, Harry. He says MLS is all about momentum. How many times have we seen a team catch momentum early and ride that to the playoffs and the next year fall back? I think that's a great point. He also said, good morning. Good morning. And he's a San Antonio fan. So we will talk about that U.S. Open Cup game here in a moment. But first, let's shift our attention to Houston, to the South, where Victor, it was a scrappy game, physical game, an ugly game. I think the Dynamo are okay with that, but they probably aren't necessarily okay with only getting a point. That said, the streak continues. The good vibes, I think, continue. What do you take out of this 0-0 game in which the Dynamo, had a scrappy first half? Then you lose Teenage to a red card, and then after that, I think you're just trying to kind of see out a point. But what was your
Yeah,
evaluation from the game and your
similar,
biggest
similar. I
takeaway?
think to the Ola Kamara thing, right? Two yellows, and I think
He didn't take his
Nagamura
shirt
after
off
the
celebrating a goal, though.
no, not this time
We
around.
have to note
Not
that
this
there
time
was no
around.
goal celebration. Yeah,
But
did
I do
last
think
time. Yeah.
there was a bit of maybe recklessness, maybe this adaptation to the league, but I do think there is. It depends how you look at this, right? If you're looking at the turnaround from last season, this is a good start, right? In the short term, it looks there's progress being made. You would have liked to have gotten some points at home, right? I mean, ultimately, you've left now, 6 points at home on the table. You've tied against Salt Lake, against Colorado, and Portland, and essentially, I mean, this is the equivalent of winning one of those and losing the other two, right? But you can see that a couple of changes. You can see where the team is moving in the right direction. I think if you're looking bigger picture, we here on this podcast we pointed out some of the things that are still lurking there, right? Some of the things they still need to change. I still think they need another playmaker, but ultimately, my bigger picture is like I told you guys, you got to stack the points up early, right? You got to make use of these home games because now there's a little bit of pressure, right? Maybe with these two Texas games. Then after that, you have 2 home games from mid-May down to the end of August. You have 5 out of 15 games at home. So it's going to get tough. It's going to get tough in the summer. And I think that's when this team's going to feel where these points would have been nice. But ultimately, like I said, if you're looking short term, there are results that are backing Nagamura, and we'll see if the team backs him with a couple more reinforcements. I think obviously Thiago hasn't played, the Brazilian winger.
Right.
That's still a question mark.
That could be a big one because although I would say, Victor, I feel like although Portland ends up winning the single game XG battle, they get more shots on target in the end, barely. Like I felt in the first half, Houston had many, many clear chances. There were 3, 4 that they should have converted that they simply didn't. And obviously, if you're protecting a 1-0 lead after minute 25 or whatever, I don't remember when the Quintero chance was, but you're looking at these opportunities, and if you're protecting that lead, it's a totally different game. Instead of chasing that game and go down to 10 men, and then it's like, well, points probably going to be happy with. Those missed opportunities. I'm not sure if slotting one different winger in changes it, but it certainly seems like it would help things out because it does, to me, look like, especially the midfield core. I thought Carrasquilla was fantastic. Vera was pretty good as well. It seems like there is definitely something there that they're understanding the idea that Nakamura has, but not finishing the opportunities.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe that's chance creation. I still think they need to create a little more, especially at home. I think in the second half they allowed Portland to get more into the game. You're right. There is a bit of more of they need to be more clinical in front of goal, right? That's why I'm saying you need a signing. That's a for sure thing. You need a killer in front of goal, right? And if Sebastian Ferreira is that guy, then you need to find them because you talk about expected goals. I mean, I was mentioning to you guys on the spaces. I mean, his numbers ain't good. 0.1 in this game. I mean, and I'm saying because the club itself prioritizes stats, right? They talk about these are some of the things they use. Well, the numbers are telling you you're not getting to your forward enough, and the eye test tells you that as well. I mean, if you're looking at that, ultimately, and especially for those that listen, cheap plug here for the Inside the Hexagon podcast, right, where we talk about a little bit more in depth.
You can make it a non-cheap plug, man. We love the Inside the Hexagon.
There we go. Darwin Quintero, this is as good as it's going to get, right? Against maybe a little bit more inferior competition, right? Against Vancouver, against Miami. And I'm talking about those are the games where he's made an impact on the scoreline. Those are the games that he's going to shine. Against teams like Portland, they're a little bit better, right? He's going to have his moments. He's going to get
That's the thing is he had his moments. He had his moments.
But that's it. But he's not going to convert.
Yeah,
He's gonna
I
get
do think,
shut down.
and I think it's over. The attack to me is overly dependent. I think Ferreira. I don't think you bench him because I think he needs that adaptation period. He needs the minutes, but he also needs to do better. He's a club. Is he club record signing? Well, I guess Herrera coming in is going to be.
Until Herrera, yeah.
So
Yeah.
for the moment, he's the record signing. But obviously, correcting a previous mistake, Dynamo did get more shots on target this game. I said the Timbers did 4 shots on target for the Dynamo, 2 on target for the Timbers, but the Timbers was 7 off target. They won loads of corners in the second half. It just seemed like they were going to get the breakthrough, and then they didn't.
And that's what stood out to me from this one, Victor. Is I know you've been talking a lot about that service. It seemed like there was more creation against a team in Portland that doesn't give up a lot. And you had the chance from Fafa Pico that he sort of
You got to put him away.
You got to put
those chances away.
Yeah, you got to put it away. There's a couple of half chances, and guys getting into the box, which I think is not something we've seen a ton from Houston this season so far. So again, like you said, progress, but eventually you've got to start taking advantage of those chances at home. And this is probably feels more like 2 points dropped than a point gained. But momentum, and you go into an Open Cup match this week, you go into a rivalry match this week. These are the money matches.
And look, I will say they did have maybe a little bit of bad luck in this game, where there's a ball that hits the post and goes out, right? Like you said, there's those chances that if they had gone in, but to combat that, I say they've had some good luck in some of the prior games, right? That's the thing; they're still flirting with these tight margins. They need to get just more concrete. They need to put these games away, and ultimately the schedule's not going to help them later on in the season.
Yeah.
It's a good thing they got Herrera coming, but I think they need more help.
The chances were there. The chances were not really there for FC Dallas as we talk about the final Texas MLS team. They rode their luck a little bit. They get a point. It's the first 5-match undefeated run since 2018, which kind of stunned me. I believe I have that right. I think it's fall 2018. I looked up the stat and have now, of course, forgotten it. But FC Dallas takes 7 shots on target. Martin Paez stands up strong. Only 2 shots on target for FCD. Their expected goals was 0.33. Their only shots total was 5. Not a lot of attack generated. I don't think that's exactly how FC Dallas wanted to play, but they end up in this game where the Red Bulls, with their press, with their pressure, with their attacking opportunities, with the way that they had their substitution patterns, it seemed like kind of a second wave of attackers arrived. A little after the hour mark, Patrick Kamala comes on around the 58th minute. Tom Barlow, Drew Yearwood come in as FCD as the Red Bulls are looking for that goal that would have given them all 3 points at home. But ultimately, the Red Bulls stay winless at Red Bull Arena. FC Dallas with a second consecutive 0-0 on the road. And now a quick turnaround as we turn our attention to Open Cup, guys. I want to talk about all 3 Texas teams' Open Cup games in the next 5 minutes here, and then looking forward quickly to the weekend with FCD playing the Houston Dynamo. We'll have a lot more coverage on the Striker Texas, of course, of that game, looking back at historic moments, looking ahead to this weekend's game. But FCD and Houston with the quick turnaround. I guess Austin has the same numbers of days in the turnaround, but it's Tuesday against Tulsa for FC Dallas and Tuesday against RGV for the Houston Dynamo. Both these teams get a bit lucky in the sense that they're hosting, because it was possible that they were going to have to, FC Dallas fly home and then drive up to Tulsa, or whatever mode of transport they chose. But both teams are staying at home. There are going to be some rotations for manager Nico Estevez, and Victor will talk about the Dynamo's plan as well. I think that Estevez has been keeping some players sort of not on ice, but he told me last week, and you'll read on the Striker Texas in the preview of the match, this is the time to use the roster. I think you could see Shabolt Shun get an opportunity. He wasn't even in the match day roster for this New York Red Bulls game. Some of the younger players who have been sort of on the fringes, maybe at Khalil Medkar, I think will be in the mix. And Kosi Tafari, who people have been wondering, why isn't he playing more in defense? I think it's his chance. An inopportune time for Nanu, the right back for FC Dallas, to get injured. Eva Tumasi went all of the last game. Going to have to put in a shift, I think, as well, though maybe they get creative. But it's weird timing for this game. Ultimately, I think FCD will hope that some of their reserves can get it done. And if not, minute 55, 60, maybe you see a change in strategy. Victor, what's Houston's approach to this game against RGV in a cup match?
Yeah, I think it's similar. I think you'll see some of the younger guys. The good thing for them is that Houston Dynamo 2 has been winning in MLS Next Pro, right? So I think you'll see a lot of that core. Teenage Hadebe won't be in the Texas Derby, so you know what that means? That means you can play in the Open Cup, and that gives you a good
early
defense
rest on
pairing.
Saturday. You better get your legs going on Tuesday.
Yeah, so maybe that bodes well. I think obviously being at home, Houston, is a bit favored, and I do think there are some guys in the lower end of the roster, right? Thoro Farson has come on for Ferreira in a couple of games. This is his chance to prove he can score. Maybe put himself a little bit more into the mix, right? As Ferreira has been struggling in the MLS games. Marcelo Palomino has been, one of the guys that has shined from the academy throughout the years. Now this is his opportunity, and especially, again, if they're not going to go outside and buy somebody, maybe it's somebody from the inside that raises their hand.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, it's been a while since Open Cup. This is the first time we've had an Open Cup in the existence of the Striker Texas, so we haven't gotten to cover this tournament yet as a site. So it's fun. It's moments that we love. I think it's extremely exciting, Chris, that we're going to see this, Austin, San Antonio. What are people calling it? I-35 Derby? Is that like?
Well, it goes back to the old Scorpions Aztecs
Sure.
days, back then it was the Queso Bowl. And I don't know if the Queso Bowl
All right.
it was an actual trophy that I think was floating around. So we'll see if somebody digs that up. But
Yeah, that'd be great. I want to see that. If you have a picture, tweet at the Striker Texas. We'd love to check it out because, man, we got the armadillo and we have a queso bowl with like a chip and like a big old thing of queso. Then I think Texas can easily claim to have the best looking or the most eccentric old rivalry trophies. Of course, the Nuco Patejas is beautiful. Chris, a lot of excitement, I think, for this game as Austin makes a short trip down. Fans from San Antonio and kind of, hey, let's get one, stick it in their eye. And Austin fans with this, I guess, is it the first ever U.S. Open Cup game? It didn't even occur to me, but this is the first ever game in this tournament. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And I think that, it's something that certainly the front office and even, Josh Wolf and the coaching staff, I think, have put a lot of emphasis on. And I think you guys know, Houston and Dallas have put a lot of emphasis on this tournament as well. And I think that maybe Austin could take a few lessons of the ways that successful MLS clubs in this tournament have gone about it. And it is a balance. It's a delicate balance of how much you use these matches to get guys experience and minutes while also leaving enough on the pitch to make sure you get the result. I think it would be not a black eye, but certainly a sore moment for Austin fans if they go on and drop a dud in this one.
It adds pressure that it's against San Antonio, because I think if FC Dallas loses to Tulsa, this is a tournament that FC Dallas really cares about. The trophy is named after the founder of the club. It's named after the father of the current ownership.
Yeah, but they've won it before.
Group. And they've won it twice before, which I think adds sort of prestige to FC Dallas, saying this is a tournament that we care about, that we want to win. All that being said, I think they're going to go for the game. I think you see some kind of traditional starters in the starting lineup on Tuesday. If FC Dallas loses to Tulsa, there's not that sort of potential for, a couple fans will chirp on Twitter. Like, if Austin loses to San Antonio, people will be talking about that all year. I mean, really will be sort of like a sustained 100%. I think that, there is added pressure because this matchup looks so enticing, because it is these neighboring teams. Maybe there's some of that as well with Houston RGV, Victor, but I think the closeness and the history of why is an MLS in San Antonio, why did it end up in Austin? Culturally, I think Austin and San Antonio being such big cities that are tied together, there's really no cultural ties between Dallas, Fort Worth, and Tulsa that I can think of. Maybe I'm missing a big one, but between Austin and San Antonio, of course. And I think that does add a little bit, like I'm saying, of importance on this game, because your fans are going to be traveling. People are excited, and it's your first ever Cup game. And if you do lose, you're going to be hearing about it for a long time.
For sure. And I do think there's a little bit of pressure, Victor, as well on Houston, just with that RGV history, with the fact that that's a club that you've used to send players to.
That's the relation. And then obviously...
and you broke off
former head coach and Cabrera down there. You got a couple ex-players and Tyler Derrick, right? Juan David Cabezas. But I do think there's a little bit more bad blood in this Austin San Antonio match, or is it North Austin versus South Austin, or because I think it's the same market, right?
Metro area smack. Wow.
Yeah, technically, and I'll be interested to kind of feel the atmosphere down there and what fans are talking about on the San Antonio side. But Austin has made somewhat of an effort to make San Antonio part of its market. It's part of the TV market down there. I don't think they've been able to do a ton of activations just because of COVID over the last couple of years. But there's probably some. I would guess that there's definitely some Austin FC fans down in San Antonio, but there's also lots of San Antonio FC fans that don't want any part of Austin FC and are still upset about the way things went down. So that's going to be interesting to feel if there's any tension in the air there, and how those fan bases interact.
If you're new to this tournament, check it out. Try and go to the game if you can. If you can't, watch the streams. It's really fun. This is the stage of the tournament where you do have there weren't a lot of cup sets in this last round, but you do have some teams of like dudes who are literally work at the same liquor store together. This is a past story. Like guys have worked at the liquor store together and have beat MLS teams. It's a tournament with more than 100 years of history. It's an extremely unique experience. Even though other countries have cup tournaments, this is, I believe, modeled after the FA Cup. It's a really, really fun time and always produces some interesting stuff. You got some NISA teams going up against MLS teams. It's possible they get victories. That would be a big upset. Eventually the tournament typically turns into MLS teams versus MLS teams, but we're still in those moments, obviously, as all three MLS teams face USL Championship teams. We're still in those moments where it's potential for upsets. It's USL teams giving everything, resting players before the cup game, while MLS players are kind of trying to toss their young guys. And in this one, it's a great atmosphere. It's great it distills American soccer culture to its purest. So if you can, check out US Open Cup game. You can also check out our coverage on the Striker Texas. We're going to try and give this tournament the respect it deserves. We didn't give the respect it deserves. Texas Derby. Didn't get to it. Show's over time already. But we're going to have all sorts of coverage on the Striker Texas. Victor and I will produce plenty of features, coverage, analysis, looks back on past matches. It's another thing that we care about deeply. And we'll have a live show.
And we'll be there, right?
At the stadium on Saturday. I thought you said I won't be there, and I was like, I thought I was.
No, I said no. We'll be there pre-game. Yeah,
we will. We'll have the live video pregame. If you want to see our faces, you can check that out. That's Saturday at noon or something. Stay tuned to the Striker Texas socials, and we'll get you set up on that. Until then, for Victor Araiza, in Houston, which direction? No, that's not right. For Victor Araiza in Houston, I've been here for 30 minutes. I don't know which way the camera mirror is working. For Chris Bils in Austin, I'm Jon Arnold, and I know I'm seated here in Dallas, Texas. We'll talk to you guys next week on the Striker.